Fam, what is cracking? It is your girl, Lillian Francis here. It is my goal to make learning Ableton Live as not annoying as possible, so thank you for joining me here today. So I am a vocalist by training. That was my first instrument. Me. And yeah, drums did not come easily to me. When I first learned how to produce music, learning the drums was for sure the most difficult part. I can find a melody on any old gust of wind, but when it came to programming drums, I was like, what the fuck? How do you get them to sound good? Where does a kick go? What is a ride? You know, all of this stuff was just totally over my head. And so I dove really deep into it and overcompensated and learned a lot of drum programming techniques. And now I feel like drum programming is one of my strongest. You know. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about how to create groovier drums. Now, I think a good place to start would be, what do I mean by groovy? This is kind of one that you feel more than you like explain. You feel the groove. You know what I'm talking about. When we say we're going to make a groovier drum beat, what does that actually mean in the program? Kind of comes down to two things, timing and velocity. So this is going to be a two-part series, and in this first section, we're going to be focusing on the groove pool. First, we're going to break down a little bit of a beat and explain how we would manually create a groovier beat, and then we're going to be jumping over to the groove pool because it's way doper and I believe is a very underutilized Ableton Live feature. Since we're going to be getting into the groove pool today, let's dive right in. Splash! All right, fam, welcome to my proj. Let's first create a very simple beat. Works for me. All right, let's give it a listen. All right, right now it has no groove. It is just a straightforward beat. Everything is on the grid, so there's really no like oomph, no groove. So the first thing we can do with this is just start sliding our notes just a little bit forward or backwards. Experiment with both, see what works in the song. I'm gonna take these snares and this middle kick here and just bump it a little bit backwards. And I'm gonna take every other hi-hat and move it back a little bit. So already we just have like a little bit of oomph. And then what can we do besides this? We can add some velocity changes. So if you hold down Command and then hover your mouse above your notes, you will see the little velocity number ranging from 0 to 127, because that makes sense, right? And then you can like do whatever you want. I typically just like move them randomly, and then if it sounds good, it sounds good. And if it doesn't, then I change it. So this will add just like a little bit more groovy groove. This is just a super basic example of how we can add groove to any old beat. But there's a way cooler way to do this, and a feature in Ableton Live that I don't see people using a lot. I didn't even use it for like years after I knew about it, and then I remembered it again, and I'm like, why don't I use the groove pool? Today, we're gonna be looking into how to use our groove pool. So fam, let's make a beat that is like a little cooler than this. All right, so now we have this also very static groove that sounds as follows. Cool. Now fam, I would like to draw your attention over to our clip box over here, and see here where it says groove pool? Yeah, that's where we want to be. If we hit this little hot swap button right now, our groove pool will be opened, and these are all the grooves that Ableton Live comes with. Now, what are grooves? What the groove pool allows us to do is to superimpose a groove composed of timing and velocity patterns that are fun. Now right here, you're gonna see where we select our groove pool, and as soon as we select one, our groove pool will open up down here. But you can also just open up our groove pool by hitting these little noodles on the left. So as we go through our grooves, they will give us a little preview. If you don't hear the preview of the groove, go ahead and hit this preview button. Let's try out this groove. I'm going to double click to assign it. And now we are looking inside of our groove pool. Okay, fam. So the first thing we have here is our bass. So the bass chooser determines the timing against which the notes will be measured. So if we have a 16th note here, our notes are going to be snapped to the nearest 16th note pattern that it has created for us. Just think about like what your smallest notes are here and what kind of you want your grid to be snapping to. We have quantization right here, which is how much quantization is applied before before the groove is applied. So this is more relevant if you are playing it in live, and the more quantized it is before you put it through the groove pool, the more the groove pool will allow itself to shine. This is another way that you can do non-destructive quantization. So what that means is you could quantize to, say if you wanted to quantize 16th note, turn the quantization 100% up, and then your groove will be completely quantized, but it will not be committed yet. And we'll talk more about what commitment actually means. Oh man. But basically know that you could quantize using the groove pool and then come back later and be like, no, just kidding, I actually didn't want to quantize that. Whereas if you're to quantize destructively, once you quantize, it's quantized unless you command C it. Okay, that was not a good wink. People love the double wink. Are you ready? I know, they love it. Let's turn quantization to 0 because we are already quantized to a 16th note beat, so this would do nothing. Next little slider we have here is our timing slider, and this is how much of the groove's timing is going to be applied to our beat. So in the case of 0, nothing will happen. In the case of 100, it will be completely grooved. So I'm gonna start at 0 and then turn it all the way up and y'all will hear it groovifying. Nothing. Groove. Ultra groove. Yeah, so you can find a little sweet spot in there. Some grooves are more dramatic than others. So for this one, a low number, you're chilling. Other ones, you'd want to bump it up to 100. And then we have our randomness knob, which adds humanization. I like to think of this as like the drunk knob. It's like how drunk is our drummer. So let's turn this guy up and you'll see what happens. Honestly, just a little bit of random goes a long way. You don't even need to add timing of the groove. You can just add a little bit of randomization. Yeah, all right, cool. Next we have velocity, and this is how much of the velocity is going to be imparted onto our groove. So we're going to use velocity here and boost it up and you'll hear what happens. And you could go negative, which means the ones that were low velocity are going to get high velocity, and the ones that were high velocity are going to get low velocity. Cool. And then we have our global amount here. This will apply to all grooves you have across all of your tracks, and you can like extra groove it if you want. So it goes up to 130. Or you can take them all away. Another fun thing is you can just drag these out and it'll create a MIDI clip. And then look, you can just like add a drum rack onto it. So let's go ahead and add some hi-hats. Sometimes I'll just get a kick and a snare pattern and then just like drag and drop like 10 different grooves onto a separate MIDI track and just like launch them one by one and see what works. Something y'all may be asking yourselves is something that really tripped me up at the beginning is how you can't see currently the difference that the groove is making on your beat. So right now, everything looks the same no matter how you change the timing and the random and the velocity and etc. And that's what makes it non-destructive. However, you can go ahead and commit a groove by just hitting this like little button right next to the hot swap mode. And this is commit groove. And as soon as we do this, you'll be able to see right here what is happening. Here you can see how they're being shifted off the grid and also how the velocities have changed a little bit. All right, fam, but wait, there is more fun to be had here. A lot of the time, you do not want to necessarily groove all of your drums. You just want certain pads to be grooved. Or say you want like your hi-hats to be super groovy and your kick just to have like a low-key groove. So the way that we can do that really easily is just by extracting our chain. So what we can do is open up our MIDI track right here and you will see inside that we have all of our different chains. So this is the same thing as, for example, let's go into our device view. Every single one of these opened up, or if we open up our chain list here, all of our chains. So we can see all of these chains here, and all I have to do is drag out one of these chains onto its own MIDI track, and it will be its own MIDI track, and it will contain all the same MIDI information that it had in its previous track. Say I wanted to only modify our hi-hat, and we're going to go ahead and drag out our hi-hat. Gotta find it first. Drag her out. and just drop her there. And now we can go ahead and close this up, and I will name this kick snare, and I will name this hi-hat. Now I can go ahead and only apply a groove to the hi-hat. So I'm going to hot swap. Yeah, that's funky. All right, double click on that bad boy. Say I want my kick to have this same groove break, 140, but I don't want it to be as intense settings. I can go ahead and duplicate my groove by just holding down Option here, or Alt if you have a PC, and dropping it. And then this guy will have the second one. This guy has the first one. And then for the second one, we'll just pull her down like this. Cool. Another tip is that you don't only have to do this with MIDI. You can for sure do this with audio, and you don't have to do this with drums. You can do it with whatever you want. It's really cool effect to have the bass and the drums groove into the same groove. So we're gonna try that out right now. Let's see if we can find a little bass loop. Cool, this guy will work. Let's drag her over. Cool, and I do want to have a little bit of a different like timing and stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and Option drag this guy down here, select from the groove pool. I'm gonna turn up the timing all the way up and maybe a little bit more random. And you can kind of hear it's warping funny, so I'm gonna switch my warp over to complex and see how it sounds. Cool, and as we commit it, you'll see that it does change just a little bit. So there are definitely grooves that'll make that more obvious, but this can help like glue your track together. All right, fam, there is even more fun to be had, believe it or not, and that is in making our own grooves. It is super simple. So fam, let's make a little bit of a quintuplet groove. A quintuplet is when we take 5 beats and we put them in the space of 4 beats. So let me draw out 5, and then all I'm gonna do is select these notes, and then see how up here we have our time selected. I can go ahead and drag out and in my notes. And if I just hold down Shift, I can drag this warp marker to the end of my notes and then pull it back. And now I have 5 notes in the space of 1. I'm going to Command D to move it across. I'm going to add a little bit of variation to my velocity. Duplicate this again, and we get so 2 things I can do. 1, I can either just drag this clip into our groove pool here, drag, drop, hello, now we have a little groove. Or I can go ahead and just right click on my groove and say extract grooves. Now you can do this with any piece of audio or MIDI, so you could drag in like some song with dope ass beats like SZA and go ahead and extract a groove and then apply that to your shit and see what happens. All right, let's extract that groove. Move that bus. Anybody get that reference? Extreme Makeover Home Edition. Come on, folks. All right, cool. Now we have a groove here. I'm gonna save it as my quintuppy friend. And let's go ahead and apply this groove to a new beat. Let's create a brand new beat. All right, cool, it's good enough for now, for sure. Let's go ahead and grab our little quintuppy friend. Too bad the name is not being reflected here, but let's apply it. Cool. Hell yeah. Experiment how you like. The world is your oyster on the beach with like a glass of champagne and like someone you have a big crush on and maybe like a back massage. Also, I want to bring to your attention one of my favorite new quotes. I don't remember who said this, but I saw it in a YouTube video, and it's playing something once is a mistake, playing something twice is music. And I think of that when I do weird shit like this. Like, you hear this once, that sounds like someone fucked up. You hear it twice, then you're like, okay, I'm coming to your parties, okay. Oh, fun stuff, fam. Well, I believe that this is the end of our Groove Fest, but thank you all so much for coming. I hope that you have learned something, and y'all, use the Groove Pool. It is like here to help you out. I think it's so fun. So fun. Anyways, hope you learned a thing or two. If you did, go ahead and give me a like or subscribe. I would truly appreciate it. It helps me get my message of musical joy reverberating throughout the world/universe in a more timely fashion. So thank you for helping me achieve my goals. And that's it. Have a wonderful week.